be recorded. Welcome again, everyone, to the first official School of Architecture and Design-wide lecture, with many thanks to the lecture committee and to our donors who have made this series possible. We are very pleased to have Yves Behar with us today. I think many of you know Yves and his work, but I would say that he is the wizard of the curve and see, this is what happens when you have a cold. He is the wizard of the curve and the magnician of making icons in the ever more invisible world of technology that powers so much of our lives. He is also a leading design entrepreneur and has co-initiated or started or jump-started quite a few ventures, including some of the ones that Bill just showed us, the various products with Jawbone, the products with Source, with Juicero. There even was this fantastic hackable platform for gaming that I think has not shipped, but was an amazing idea, called Ouija, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And my other favorite, the vibrator, which I believe was launched. And with all of these products, he has made this much vaunted but very nebulous revolution in gigs and gadgets, visible and tangible to all of us. He's also just a really good designer, and I think that is evident in some of the objects that Bill Green just showed us. He has designed everything from the leaf chair to office systems, and from Nest to objects such as vases and other adornments for the home. Well, in doing that, he has also engaged in multiple projects that help make the world better beyond just making beautiful objects, including the one laptop per child, which Bill again just showed, as well as a fantastic project to provide very affordable eyeglasses, free eyeglasses, in fact, to children all across Mexico and Central America. And he has also explored other worlds, thinking about how we might occupy everything from the deep sea to outer space. I first came to know Yves Behar when he had just finished his education at what is now called the California College of Arts, after he had also been educated at the Art Center of Design for Design in Pasadena, and in Lausanne. Yves has a multinational background that includes Swiss, German, French, Turkish, and who knows what other parts of the world in one person united in him. And he brings all of that background and education, as well as his openness to the continually changing culture around us, to bear on the work that he does with Fuse projects and beyond. So for me, it is a real honor to be able to welcome Yves Behar to Hokie Nation. Yves, to you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's always great to hear you, learn new words from you, and you know, actually, you may remember this, but you may not remember this. But we met before CCA and Art Center. We met when you were, I believe, dean or professor at SciArc, and I was a student at the Art Center College of Design, and I came down to help a friend with his thesis. So we spent all night building things. It was a big charrette. There were probably 15 people. Most of them were Persian, and I was the lone Swiss guy there trying to help them organize this presentation that we're about to give you. So
I do not recall that. My goodness.
Then you rolled in, and and gave a really interesting feedback to the student, which I've remained friends with until today. So since we have students in the audience here, I thought it would be good to sort of recount a little bit how you meet people through your design career and through life, and how you stay in touch with them. So it's really nice to see you.
It's great to see you.
So I'll share some of this. I didn't realize this was the first, so that's just a little bit of pressure of a lecture, but we'll have time for questions at the end, and I really look forward to the dialogue. Sometimes it's great to be doing talks on Zoom, and I've probably done more talks, more conferences, more lectures in the last year than I've probably done in the last 5 or plus, just because it is easier to do so. But what's not as easy as not seeing the audience, not seeing your faces, not seeing your reactions, not tuning on that. But I'll do my best to keep it dynamic and fun, and then hopefully we'll we can have conversations. And if you feel like interrupting, if you feel like coming into this and asking for better explanation than the one I'm giving, or if you have specific questions, I think that's okay too. So don't be shy. So I'm going to put something on the screen, I think. So we have some visuals to accompany the talk. I will do this now. Let me see here. And let's go to the start. Can you see my screen? Yeah, very good. And let me do a little, just to be ready here. Just gonna attempt something here, 1 second, on a second screen. Oh, here, I found it now. Okay, so I think in these strange and crazy and times that we live in, I started to think about the notion of design resilience, and also specifically design at the extreme of life. And I feel that sometimes so much of our our lives, our design, our efforts is focused in the comfortable middle part of life. When you're healthy, when you're young, or kind of young, and then when everything's going well. But at the same time, I really have felt in the recent years that there's a sense of extreme all around us, and that maybe design is actually better serves us when it's not about fun gadgets and things that we carry around, but when it's about really supporting life and people where they really need it, and when they really need it. And so there's a series of projects that we've done that I think really speak to that. And before I start, this is a slide that I really like to share with students, especially students in design and architecture and graphics. We live in a world where a lot of the news, a lot of the discussions tend to kind of fall into extreme and different views, and I find that a little bit distressing. I think that actually design has a lot to contribute, and has a lot to contribute in ways that sometimes we don't realize. So when you look at this simple statistic here, about how much we do, how much we contribute, how much we support, in this case, the economy, more than agriculture and transportation. I do think that this is a hopeful slide, a hopeful notion, and I want every student to know that their contributions are going to be extremely valuable. Their contributions are going to be essential to this country, even though maybe often, more often than not, the media doesn't speak about the arts, doesn't speak about design as a fundamental element of our of our economy and our culture. So I've divided these chapters of design at the extremes of life in 3 areas. Mostly, it's about design for people that need it the most: the aging, young parents, children with learning disabilities, as well as there's another chapter which is more about housing, which I thought would be interesting as housing is top of mind these days as well. And then the last chapter is a little bit more about what we do in the developing world and some of the projects that we have taken on in both in the US and in other places. And there will be some detours and there will be some side notes here. So as I said before, the young, the old, the sick, how does our work contribute? And what I have found really sort of significant and important here is, while technology can be this wonderful generalist, do everything, try to solve everything type of products, such as the ones we all carry in our pockets, I also have found that when you design something that is highly specific, highly focused on a need, a set of needs, actually technology almost acquires again a sense of true purpose and true utility. And so I'll share a few projects in this sense. So this is one that I was used in the poster or in the announcement for our discussion. It's a rather recent project, and it addresses things that we're all familiar with today, which is distance learning is challenging and difficult, especially for young children. And that we have 1 in 5 children here in the US that are diagnosed as being, as we call, neurodivergent on the spectrum, with autism that touches a lot of families. And this project actually started as a companion, as a friend to sort of focus and dedicated to autistic children. And we've seen a lot of robots. We've seen a lot of robots that follow you around, a lot of robots that try to entertain us. But it's actually really impressive what can be done today with speech recognition, with AI and robotics, and how a real connection can be created between children with learning and developmental challenges and essentially what is a machine. So the sort of first deep insights that we got from researchers from UCLA that study autism and is the fact that children on the spectrum really connect with 2 physical elements, the eyes and the hands. And I've one of my 10 principles of designing in the age of robots and AI is actually not to make them to a human form, but I'm starting with the exception because as we learned about the need and the need and how these children learn, we realized that a form that is human or humanoid is actually really essential to their learning and to their empathic way to connect. So large eyes were critical, as well as movement of the hands and expression of the general body, but the hands are something that their brain kind of locks into. And so a lot of you have seen, robots that tend to have mechanical eyes that open and close. Maybe, I forgot the name, the animation area of Disney or Disney World. And those are extremely difficult to do, and they don't have a great range of expression, and they always look creepy, I would say. Whereas here the magic was created when the engineers and the team at fuseproject realized that we could create a rear projection inside the head of Moxie, which is the name of our little friend here. So by having a rear projection into the head, suddenly we were able to create a vast range of facial expressions and ways for the eyes and the hands to connect with a learning child. So this is, you can see here about the scale. This is not intended to be an all-day distraction for this child. It's actually focused on 1 hour of learning a day, and does a really good job, especially if you think of families that really need help, with children on the spectrum for several times a week. This really sort of, Moxie really takes an important place in their learning environment. I'm going to play a little video because I think it is, and I may skip, let's see where it's at, but I think it's hard to understand really the impact until you hear and see the little guy. So here he's simply talking to the founder of
That was a wonderful story. This book is hilarious. I really want to understand what makes humans laugh, so I can tell the DRL. What do you think made Click Clack Moo so funny?
I think typing animals is funny.
The animals were so smart. I'm glad the cows and the hens got electric blankets. There were a lot of made-up words and silly sentences. It made the story sound very funny. What words or sentences made you laugh?
Clickety clack moo. That was a funny.
I thought it was so funny that the writer made up words like clickety. I think it'd be fun to call her and try making up some silly words. Maybe the other robots would find that really funny. I learned a lot about what makes humans laugh. Thanks for chatting with me about Click Clack Moo. How's it type?
You're welcome.
So obviously this can go on for a long time, and the range of reading and jokes and ways for Moxie to connect with that young child is really uncanny. Actually, I could have conversations with Moxie as well for quite a while. And then, so the next one is addressing a different part of, I think, a need, which is, and also something that we have obviously experienced even in a more extreme way in the last year with the pandemic and with the stay-at-home orders. And this project called LEQ is addressing seniors. It's a companion to seniors as people who are isolated, who tend to be at home by themselves, report feeling lonely. Actually, about half of the aging report feeling lonely. And this is not meant to neither of these projects is meant to replace contact with humans. In fact, this project is really promoting a way for older people who have for whom technology is a barrier, for whom technology has brings sort of too much complexity for them to be comfortable using it. It helps them connect with the outside world. It helps them connect with their families, and it's made out of 2 parts. So this was another one of these projects where you can look at robots and they can follow you around, and but that's not what the aging with this particular group of seniors gave us as feedback and input. They wanted a beautiful table object, something that fits in the kitchen or the living room, and simply something that responds to them as they walk in and out. An object that kind of turns its head and gives some kind of signal, acknowledgement, and maybe bring some new ideas. Suggests, since we have nice weather today in San Francisco, to go for a walk, for example, or to connect with a grandchild. So the interesting part is that it's made out of 2 parts. There is the emotive side, which is on the left-hand side, and then there is a tablet, which is used for reading, watching things, communicating in a more conventional way. So I'll show a couple of videos too, because these projects really come to life when you see how the design, the architecture of the object, the user experience of the object connects with those folks.
Hi, Walter. Would you like to hear something interesting?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
There are only 18 minutes of total action in an average baseball game. Bet you didn't know that, right?
I did not know that.
So throughout the day, LEQ will have quizzes and will, is tuned into the interest of its owner, and so this is a video that is obviously produced, but there's a couple of other videos that we filmed with our original groups and or test subjects, test groups, which actually lived with LEQ for long periods of time.
Morning.
So this
the
is
Earth
one.
says hello.
I tell her good morning because then she wakes up and says good morning, have a great day, which is a cheerful start to the day.
Here's another one.
LEQ is a presence. I feel that there's somebody nearby with whom I can communicate. I can turn to her anytime. I'd like to have her music as a background.
So both of these projects have been in testing for quite a while. Obviously, these are it's very important to sort of tune them to needs, to specific needs, and they're both out there now. So they're both in people's homes and fulfilling their tasks. And we also have in the studio a couple of projects. This is one of them. There's another one that's similar, but for a different audience. And we have a couple of and these projects are more based on the physical needs of the aging. This is one that is essentially an undergarment, and we call it powered clothing. So there are clothes with batteries and power motors, as well as and these lines you can see on the body follow muscle lines. And for example, getting up or staying up straight for an aging person is very important. And the more you do it, the more you maintain physical fitness. So there is, you can see here how it complements, how the electric muscles complement the human muscles as this person sits down and stands up. And again, it was very important that that it be under, undergarment. Now it's been about 2 or 3 years since we launched the Happiest Baby SNU, and this has the other ones are in the early stages of going out in the market and being used. And we've had an extraordinary adventure really with this project. I met Dr. Harvey Karp now 7 or 8 years ago. I worked with him for 5.5 years on essentially turning his method, which is called the 5 S's, which is the most used method to keep babies asleep. We essentially turned his method, which has to do with moving the baby, which has to do with shushing sounds, as well as being swaddled. We have essentially turned that into a robot. But when I used to tell people what's one of the most exciting projects you work on, which is a very common question when you're a designer, I would say, well, I'm designing a robot that will take care of your baby. And I immediately would get a reaction, which is like, oh, wow, that's never going to work. That's not for me. But I liked the provocation, the thought of a robot that takes care of your baby, even though we didn't design it to be that dystopian kind of vision that people would immediately get. Why is that important? Because sleep actually affects postpartum anxiety and depression, affects 25% of couples who have babies. And adding an hour or 2 of sleep to the baby's night makes a tremendous difference. And we actually have had 15 plus clinical studies that have shown the effectiveness of taking care of a baby. This is Dr. Harvey Karp, probably 10, 15 years ago. And I love working with entrepreneurs that are humanists. They're not, this is not a project or product that sort of came out of a lab, out of an engineering lab. This is a project that really came from a pediatrician who wants to continue to change the lives of young parents for the better. So I'm going to show you something. It's very annoying. It's especially very annoying to young people who don't have babies. But I promise it will be short, but it shows you exactly what the SNU does, which is it listens to a baby, and as the baby becomes agitated, starts crying, it starts to create a movement, a lateral movement, a very light swinging movement. There's noises, as I said, shushing noises that resemble the noises that the baby has experienced before birth. And you can see the swaddle in there that we designed as well. So these are 4 crying, angry babies that I just can't sleep at that moment. You will see, they're very unhappy.
So you can hear kind of the ring of this sound. And now the motion's going to spin.
So as the noise, let me make it a little less noisy. As the noise comes on of the baby crying, the movement starts to happen. The shushing noises start to happen. And you can see the one on the upper left corner is falling asleep. This is all in real time. No editing on these early videos. And you can say goodnight to the one on the top left. The one on the bottom right is still resisting a little bit. Here, and they're all gone to sleep. Now for parents, this is a very, very exciting moments. So this is actually my son, who is now 4 years old. This is one of the early versions, and we actually took pictures of him, but you can see the swaddle. Swaddling is something that you learn in the hospital. Every hospital teaches swaddling, but it comes apart. It's hard to do when you're tired in the middle of the night. So we created this very simple, well aerated swaddle. So we went, it's a soft goods, it's a hard goods, it's a technology. There's AI microphone speakers, etc. in the unit. And this is a robot. This is a robot that takes care of your baby. It doesn't look like a robot. That was obviously our intention. It's the mesh on the outside protects the baby from the environment, but also is translucent, so it allows the parent to see the child inside. Again, this shows you there's several safety features in there that allow you to that keep the baby on its back, which is very important. And what we what happened with this project is, this is one of these startups, as Aaron said earlier. We find ourselves being designers, but also being partners, sometimes being co-founders of companies. And the way this project took off, based on how well it works, across a wide spectrum of people, has really been incredible. This is not a big company. It's not one with large amounts of advertising. So it really was propelled by social media and parents sharing and liking the outcomes there. It's also in 75 NICUs around the country, because preemie babies tend to not sleep well, and the more they sleep, the better, the more they grow. And there actually a lot of work to take care of because of their lack of sleep. And so now it's adopted in 75 NICUs. And then I'll add this, which is truly extraordinary. I'm sure you're familiar with SIDS, infant death syndrome, sudden infant death syndrome, which very sadly kills 3,500 to 4,000 babies in the US. After 200 million hours of babies in the SNU, we now know and have been, the FDA has supported the claim that the SNU is a SIDS prevention device. That is quite, we knew there was this likely outcome, but we didn't want to advertise that or make claims, obviously before a few years of use of the SNU. But that FDA determination is truly an extraordinary outcome for, again, a project that started from a humanistic point of view and that was started by a pediatrician. We'll stay a little bit with youth, but move a little bit more towards architecture. And this is the De Young Museum, which is a Herzog and de Meuron building in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And this is a space, a permanent space that's dedicated to youth, where we designed both the environment and the user experiences within it. It's 5 experiences all around learning about creativity. But as Aaron knows, you cannot have paint and paintbrushes and scissors in the middle of the museum. You can have that in side rooms, but we wanted this to be a resource for parents and children who come in the museum and sometimes feel like there's nothing for their children to stay interested in. And so here they learn about, I'll show this quick movie, but they learn about color and color mixing, They learn about composition. They they learn about texture and relief, as well as sculpture, and they create their own sculpture and can display them in the environment thanks to an augmented reality element. So here, this is the central column when you enter the space, and you can grab the dots with your hands and mix it. So what was really important is that it doesn't feel like a screen-based experience, that everybody can touch, or their children can touch the exhibits, can move things, can use their bodies for movement. And this is probably my favorite, which is they create a sculpture made out of these objects. They place the sculpture in the blue box, and then they see it in the park. They see their creation in the park, where at that point they can change colors and scale. And I think it's very important for children to see their own work represented, especially in an institution, in a place like a museum. This is the fun graphic design, more branded approach that we had there. Now, last 14 months have been a very dramatic year, and we at fuseproject, initially when the pandemic hit, I think it was easy to feel, as a designer, it was easy to feel sort of out of the loop, out of the action, out of the ability to help and support and contribute to the relief efforts. But the fuseproject team, my team, very quickly we came up with a few different initiatives. We supported the testing of an entire small town north of San Francisco, 1,800 people, with digital work. We did a poster campaign, educational poster campaign for the United Nations. And then the design team, the industrial design team, got really excited about doing a ventilator. And what's different here is that we wanted a ventilator that would be built in under 4 hours, that would be under $1,000, and that would be more practical, more safe than in terms of its user interface. So we partnered with Mass General Hospital and worked with doctors. Everything was done remotely. Everything was done via Zoom. We got the insights on safety, very important. A lot of ventilators have different interfaces that can be confusing, and mistakes are made. The worst one being simply to turn it off instead of keep it on. So the result here is this project, we did it in about a month. And it's in African FDA approval currently, and will be a low-cost solution and a safer solution, we believe. Now, this is a bit of the engineering there. Whoops. Seems I played around with a presentation a little bit. Here we go. So we did all these projects, and about 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we got a call from the office of the governor of California, and they felt, as I've heard a lot of people saying, well, now that we're getting vaccinated, it's a civic gesture to do that. There is a celebration. There is and so how do we celebrate that? How do people get the I voted sticker and wear it proudly after their vaccination? And so we had only 5-6 days, because on April 15th, the state announced that anybody 16 years old and over can get vaccinated. And so we ran as fast as we could, so we could meet the gentleman on the right-hand side of the screen there, Gavin Newsom's press conference, where he was announcing the availability of vaccines to everyone. And when we thought about and there's a lot of different ways to express that. You can just have a sticker or a pin like the one I have here on my desk that says, I'm vaccinated. But to me, there was a bigger sense, and there were some things we couldn't say. We couldn't use the word shot. I got my shot or I got my jab. These actually words were, we were told to stay away from these words by African American and Latin communities. So we developed this slogan around immunity. And to me, the word immunity contained other words, or was so close to other words that we found this notion of community, unity, and immunity. And the sticker is called Immunity Together, the slogan. And the sticker is essentially two Band-Aids that when you fold up the ends of the Band-Aids, it forms a heart, because again, you do this as a civic gesture. Those were translated in Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Tagalog, and there will be probably more translations. And we're starting to see people walk around or celebrate on social media their vaccination. And it is also important for those stickers. One of the goals is for them to create a gentle pressure, social pressure, as we need to reassure people that the vaccine is going to protect them and protect their communities as well. So let's move on to housing. Maybe I'll go even faster because it looks like I've already been talking for 42 minutes. So there is a lot of really interesting things happening in housing, and it took me a few years to be able to work in that area. But the first thing I'll show, and I did a quick cut and paste of pictures, is, and this is, yesterday was Earth Day. And we've been lucky for the last couple of years to work with a gentleman named Fabien Cousteau, the great grandchild of Yves Cousteau, who was very present in my childhood. That's how I discovered the marvels under the water, under the surface. And so the Proteus, as Fabien Cousteau, calls the project and his vision, was really a partnership with him. He holds the record of longest underwater stay, which is 31 days, and the conditions underwater, can be challenging. So we wanted to design a very 21st century research center that is much more favorable to humans, that allows them to stay underwater for a long time. The previous versions of underwater structures tend to be very small, humid, not a lot of light, and this is a much larger structure, 4,000 square feet, and it's made of 2 volumes, a lower one and an upper one, connected by a ramp. And the ramp serves as a way to easily connect the 2 spaces, but also as a form of physical exercise. So now, why do we need an underwater station? Well, every child, every adult is fascinated by space, partially because we have the International Space Station. We have rockets flying up there and coming back down. And we wanted to create a very iconic building, essentially, for to promote research of the oceans, and the sort of both medical, food safety, and global warming work that can be done underwater. Now, why a unit underwater versus just diving from the surface? If there are divers in the group, you'll know that it takes a whole day to go up and down for about an hour, maybe 2 maximum hours of work underwater. Whereas if you're already in the if you're already under ocean pressure in Proteus, then you can just swim out and swim back in. So you can work all day long. It accelerates research, underwater research, by a factor of 40 or so. And it is really meant as an international effort and station. And so the main component, which is the main structure, and then the pods that attach on the outside are specialized labs or that contain specialized equipment that different universities, different private businesses, different governments may add. So it's important to be able to have a flexible system where things can be added and subtracted, and that's what the outer pods are there for. It's attached to the bottom of the ocean, and currently they're doing a survey. They have a partnership with Proteus, as a partnership with Barbados for the surveying and eventual permanent location for the first Proteus. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more specifically about the environmental impact of construction, which accounts for a very large amount of CO2 emissions and global energy use, and will need to be significantly reduced to meet the Paris agreements. The other issue that we have here in the U.S. is population density. As you can see here, it's very, very low compared to other places like Berlin or London. And so increasing population density has been on a lot of people's minds for a long time. And a new law has come into effect in California about 2.5 years ago, which is called the ADU law. And ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit, which essentially is a small building in your backyard. So it's very hard to add to the density of an existing city or suburbia, just because it's hard for folks to accept large buildings next to their residence. But to add a single building in the backyard is both practical and doubles up on the density. So now ADUs are legal. They're actually encouraged, and there's a fast permitting process that's attached to them. Now, standard construction, creates about 8,000 pounds of waste for every 2,000 square feet. Whereas prefabs, when things are designed in a factory, it's about 80% more efficient compared to standard construction. So I partnered with this company named Plant Prefab in LA, and we delivered a bunch of prefabs recently around, based on this design. And what I looked for was a very flexible design, because it isn't about offering a cookie cutter single solution for people's backyards. I don't think that is the way architecture, will go or should go. In fact, what we're doing instead is a modular system that allows for, in this case, a 600 square foot building, but in different finishes, different looks, and is adaptive to different needs. Now, that's very important, because backyards tend to be more crowded. There is fences, there's trees, light and privacy are more complex to figure out. So here's a few visuals. This is the pitch roof version. I'll add one more thing. One of the main issues with construction and why you have so much neighboring resistance is the element of even local pollution that it creates, the trucks and the driving and the noise and the dust that is very difficult when you own the neighboring property. But imagine if you went to your neighbor and you said, oh, we're doing construction. They go, oh no, how long is it going to take? You're like, well, the installation of the building will take 24 hours. Imagine how that changes the willingness of your neighbors to be more cooperative than they are today. Anybody in interior design or architecture knows that all the challenges with that. Another positive in terms of the reduction of, another environmental positive is the reduction of size of apartments. So doing smaller apartments, as they're sometimes called, micro units or junior studios, has grown quite quickly, which has been important in cities to offer affordable housing. But at 300 square foot, 300 to 500 square foot, an apartment is not very livable. You have essentially the kitchen and the bed are only a couple of feet away. You don't really have a living room. You don't have much closet. And so with a lab that became a startup from MIT Media Lab, we worked on what we call robotic furniture that, for example, here takes your bed or hides your bed, gives you space on the right-hand side for an office and a closet, and then goes away if you need, if you want to entertain, if you want a living room. Here's another video of an apartment. So you can see, in this case, the desk is on the other, there's a bigger desk on the left-hand side, a closet that opens up as the unit slides across to the left, a bed that slides out and becomes essentially a separate bedroom. My favorite part is, of course, when the bed kind of goes away. So the startup is named Ori, and there's been I think a few hundreds have been already installed in the last year or two. This is a video that we shot of something similar. So you can see it in real life, not in a rendering. You can see the system there. And there is both a physical interface, so you can you touch it. There's lighting that's incorporated. You can use Alexa, of course, and this is how you can transform your house. You can use a phone app as well. This is my, that's a fun little feature right there. So that is a technology, and one of the themes in our work is though there isn't really a sense of your house is wired with a lot of tech, and I really truly believe that technology needs to disappear, especially in our homes. This is the Frame TV with Samsung, which started as really like a lab within fuseproject. It wasn't sort of a straight assignment where Samsung said, we want you to put art on TVs. They just said, how do we bring more TVs in people's homes in different rooms? And we're like, our answer was like, you can't, because TVs take more and more room. Apartments are getting smaller and smaller. And who wants a giant void? Because 22 hours out of 24, the TV is off. So it's a black void. And it's been like this for 60, 70 years. I mean, since the origin of the TV. And since the origin of the TV, similarly, people were hiding them in nice closets and nice cabinets. But now the TVs are so big and a lot of people make a lot of effort to hide their TVs, but how can we hide them in plain sight? So it became this exercise of creating a TV with a beautiful frame in the right proportions, with a collection of art, so that something like this can happen, while your parents are showing off arts, your kid can switch to cartoons and back. And yeah, I want to show them interface. And there's a beautiful, very respectful interface in here that allows for this, for artists to feel comfortable actually having their artworks on screen. And so now, it was really sort of a interesting experiment that turned into a real product, a bit of a trial, and now it's an international. It's sold everywhere in the world, and it's the largest digital art collection available from both the native part of the Samsung frame, but also from museums around the world, from the Tate to Leo Uffizi to probably 20 or so museums. And it's made possible because, again, we use technology I like to use technology as not as the enabler of the experience, in this case, a discrete experience. So if you have a photograph or drawing on a screen, it always looks backlit. It never looks real. But if you dim the lights, bring it way back, you have a real sense throughout the day that this image, this picture, this drawing is actually there, that it's real. And so that's what we were able to accomplish with this technology. And then we have these magnetic frames, which you can see on the left, which people pick any color they want. There's a lot more of them available now. And we placed the Samsung logo on the side, which was quite something, for Samsung to launch their latest and greatest and just say, yeah, but the logo can't appear in the front. It's got to move to the side, because we have to create the illusion that there's art there. Finally, another discrete technology, which is the August Smart Lock. I co-founded a company in 2012, and it's become the reference. We're probably at 2 billion unlocks now. The reference in a different way to access the home, one that doesn't require for you to look for your keys in your pocket or even look for your phone. At my house, there's auto unlock. So as I approach, it opens up. I don't think I'll ever be able to go back to carrying sharp little pieces of metal in my pocket. I'll skip this home gyms that are digital, that allow you with a range of training. And then I'll just finish with this project, which is about 3D printing. So 3D printing is a technology that we've used since the mid-90s, that architecture has gotten really excited about a little bit after that. And I'm actually working on a project that will launch May 6th that you'll be very surprised. All I can say is it's about wood and 3D printing. But this was about using the latest and greatest in 3D printing, but to address a specific need from people who make under $200 a month in the developing world. This is a family in Mexico, in the state of Tabasco. And this is the first 3D printed community. I'll show you a quick little visual. It's a rather large machine that can print small buildings, about 550 to 600 square feet. It prints them in about 24 hours. The mixture is made out of concrete, so it's available on site. The roof is placed afterwards. There's an interesting texture that's created on the walls, which I actually think is, which I like. And the real interest here is how New Story is the name of the nonprofit that builds these, but how community involvement was critical throughout. We made mock-ups, we flew down, we presented to the families that are receiving these homes. And what I find really interesting about 3D printing is that we can really accommodate different needs. So if a family needs 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, that's a very quick modification of the drawing. If you're a little further south, the kitchen is typically placed outdoors versus indoors in this particular area. So you can really adapt the buildings very quickly, and even have a variety of different buildings on the same site, which is very different from sort of standard tilt-up type of construction that is usually done for these conditions. So this is a little view at night. Okay, well, we're at 1 hour. I'll just show you. This week I finally got back to the office, had a few brainstorms. Here, this gives you a sense of where we work and the team, and there's a bunch of Herman Miller furniture that we designed there, the sail chair and the system, but it's all built around collaboration and being with other people and brainstorming, etc. So this is the view from Fuse Project. Here, and I'll end up.
Thank you so much, Yves.
Yeah, thank you.
I would love to open it up to questions. Perhaps the best thing to do is if you can put your questions in chat, or either that or raise your hand digitally.
Oh, wait. Kevin, show me what you got. You got a original Jambox. Oh, and Brooke too. Nice.
That's Bill. He's just posing his book today.
Nice.
Kevin, Yves, do you know
look,
Kevin Jones?
He's got all the latest, the minis as well.
What did you say, Aaron?
I was trying to. Do you know each other, Yves? Do you know Kevin Jones?
No, I know him, but he don't know me.
Okay, well, you should.
Nice to meet
you should
Kevin.
know Kevin. He's doing some great stuff here in Blacksburg. He's a great industrial designer and a proud alumnus of our program. So.
What's Joby? Does it say Joby behind you? Oh, Joba.
Yeah, Joba. Joba is my version of Fuse Project.
Oh, good.
But no,
so doesn't blush when you say that.
But no, I appreciate you presenting today. Followed your work for, since I've been in the industry. Can I ask you? Are we asking questions now, Aaron? Or no?
Yeah, sure. I was going to get things going, but go ahead, please. Okay.
I had a question because I kind of studied somewhat your business model a little while back, and I'm wondering. It's like 2 questions. One question is, how often does the partnership model, to where you partner with some of your maybe clients, does it work out more times, yes or no? More times than no?
It's like, if you ask this question to a venture capitalist, they'll say it works out 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, right? And
that's different because they're not working in the project, like creating. But,
yeah. It obviously doesn't always work out, and you have to be ready for that. But I think you want to spread the risk, and the model, if you've studied it, you know that. But the model that we started to use in 2003 or 4 has a range of different ways that we can do okay, we can do well, or we can do amazing. And so so you need to think about a set of returns on that investment that are short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Short-term, there's still fees. It's less fees. You discount your hourly rate. You say it's a startup. I mean, often, sometimes they're very well financed, and they're like, "Hey, we'll pay full price, no worries." but they may throw some equity on top of that, and they because they want you as a partner. For a startup to have sort of a great partner over the long term is very meaningful, but they can't afford the full fees that are sort of typical in our industry. So, but you still have some fees because you need to keep the lights on, right? So you have some fees there that should ensure that you break even. I don't think anybody should lose money putting their design skills forward, unless it's pro bono, it's for a cause. Then the midterm incentives are royalties, because the product may launch, and when it launches, you get the product can be the product of the experience or the service can be priced so that you derive some revenue from that, and that should make you whole on your initial investment. So hopefully, if the product launches and does well, you should be whole or more. Obviously, if it's a runaway hit, you're going to make a lot more money than in the beginning, and you deserve it because you made an investment, just like any investor in any business. And then the long-term opportunity are equity in the company, shares of the business, and that's usually a 7 to 10 year sort of outlook on that return. And I would say, the way we balance it out, we've done for now many years, about 50% of what I call venture design work, and 50% of standard, consulting work, hopefully with long-term partners. And now, you can't have a rigid structure because every startup is different. And so it should be a combination of 2 or 3 of these, ideally 3, but sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's just, one element. If the startup is well-funded, then they have plenty of cash to spend. So, for us, it's been really worthwhile. I think it's important to be diversified in that, to not just have, a venture design in one specific area. If you can have things in health and healthcare and well-being, and some in consumer, some may not have anything to do with products. They can be a service. I think being diversified is a good idea as well. So, what's our percentage, I think, of something that works, in there? I think it's better than VCs, because we tend to get to learn about that company more. We tend to work with them longer. We tend to be more, I think sometimes more tied to the success of the company, because you're doing real work, right? So, maybe it's 1 out of 5, but that's pretty good. I mean, we've done 70, 75 startups. I mean, we've worked with 70, 75 startups, 4 of which we co-founded.
All right, so here's my other question.
Yeah.
One is a quick one, and then it's actually 2. One is a quick one.
Yeah, keep it quick, Kevin. We have some students who want to ask questions.
I'm the issue, I'm the one who has long answers, so I'll try to keep my answers short.
All right. For people who don't know who Yves Behar is or fuseproject is, how do you describe yourself or what you do?
I tend to have fairly humble answers there. I'm a designer. That's what I say. I like to invest in change. I like transformation on real human solutions that have the potential to make a big difference. And I often say, I really see our role, all of us, as a way, I really see design as a way to accelerate the adoption of new ideas. So I tend to be very excited and interested in new ideas, and do my best so those new ideas succeed. Because if you say sustainability, is very important, and then you do a bad job at it, well, the next you're screwing up the whole category sometimes, right? Because there won't be another 2 or 3 companies entering the space. So it's a responsibility as well. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's and what I often say is, like, we're also very diversified. We're not specialized. We're definitely we're a multidisciplinary team at the core of everything we do.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have some questions about sustainability, but someone asked this a while ago, so I really want to get this in there. We have this image of you as a designer, but a lot of the work you do also depends on engineering. And so Andres Parlada would like to know, what is the mix in terms of engineers and designers, and how big are the teams? Is there a standard size? And how do you match those kind of teams up with the companies? I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Fuse project is about 65, 70 people. But we're well distributed between industrial design, as well as environments, what we call environments, which is interiors, spaces, etc. Graphic design and branding, as well as user experience, and then strategy. Strategy tends to kind of be present in every one of our projects. The teams can be anywhere between 2 people. Sometimes I work with 1 designer, and I like, those tend to be smaller, faster, projects, to 15, 20 people in a team. I would say 95, 98% of the time there's more than 1 discipline on a project. So truly multidisciplinary. There's always 2, 3, 4 disciplines. The projects I showed you have multiple designers from multiple teams. I'll surprise you. I mean, we have also a couple of technology focused, a couple of technologists, engineers that work with us, and they allow us to create these prototypes where we can show the design idea, but through some kind of working product, working unit, working experience. But I'll surprise you by saying we don't have engineering in-house. And the reason is because we're so diverse. Some days we're working on a pair of sunglasses, that's for the ocean cleanup. Sometimes we work, figuring out a hinge. Sometimes we have something that's a lot more complex. Currently we're working on electric vehicles. And so the engineering tends to be more of a specialized profession, especially when it has to respond to a single project, like audio engineers for speakers and headsets. And you don't really want to ask an audio engineer to, figure out a hinge or an electromechanical problem. So we tend to go outside to these engineering groups that are, very focused on their own specialty. I'll use an example. For example, with the August Smart Lock was a really, really challenging gearing project, because we had to take a tiny motor that fits in that door lock, and deliver tremendous force to unlock doors sometimes that are jammed or that have resistance in them. And the only engineers in the world that could do basically a very complex gearbox to accompany the motor were Japanese and Swiss. So again, not something we can easily find, or easily hire and keep people busy when we are so diverse.
We can't hear you, Aaron. You're on mute.
It said I was unmuted, but okay. I hope I'm unmuted now. I'm going to skip one question to move ahead to a question from Jonas Hoffman, which is to get more general your thoughts on the responsibility to the environment. And I will add my own question to that, which is, having started by making beautiful objects, you seem to still, at your core, be fascinated in making objects. And how do you justify that in an era in which we seem to have so many objects, and the making of an object is already uses up natural resources to such a degree?
Absolutely. So I believe that, and this is a question that that I'm often asked, and I often respond with, well, why do we need another chair? Or don't we have enough chairs to put people in them? It's a similar question, I guess you would ask an author, why do we need more books? The reason why we need more chairs, to be specific, is because the chairs that were built 20 or 30 or 50 years ago are simply use X amount more materials, energy, tend to not be recyclable, tend to use materials from virgin sources or materials that are unhealthy. And the sail chair, for example, which I'm sitting on right here, uses half of the carbon footprint as other chairs. So the question is, in a world where people need more chairs in an office, would you rather fabricate chairs that use, 2-3 times the carbon footprint, don't last as long, end up in a landfill, or would you rather get a chair that is going to, this one that I'm sitting on is guaranteed for 12 years by Herman Miller, and is cradle to cradle certified, and so all that really sort of gives me a sense that we need to continue to iterate and to make sure that what we build is going to be it's going to get better and better. For example, I'm working on packaging today, a lot of packaging, because there's finally a drive towards less harmful packaging or not harmful packaging. And the packaging industry, companies like Nestle and L'Oreal, etc., are hearing you. They're hearing you, the consumers, the people who want these products, and you want something different. You want a consumption that is less, but also that is more conscious. And so when we ship these products, when we design these new packaging solutions, we're turning to alternative materials, we're turning to alternative manufacturing, and hopefully we get to a place where these things will be these products and the materials that we use will be non-destructive and hopefully even beneficial to the world out there. I'll use this. I didn't show this. This is the ocean cleanup sunglasses, and this is a project I'm particularly excited about. The Ocean Cleanup is this organization that has this giant boom, and their goal is to clean up the Pacific garbage patch, which is a very large area, about 500,000 football fields that have a lot of floating plastics in it. So they go out there, they collect plastics, which are considered trash, but then we actually use that material. And you can see it has some streaks and some texture to it. We use that material to make these sunglasses. What does this do? It demonstrates that this is not trash, it's treasure. It's a material that shouldn't be in the ocean in the first place. So it's remedial, at least for now, it's remedial. I mean, obviously, but the more we pick up this plastic, the more sunglasses we make with the ocean cleanup. And hopefully you will buy some for Mother's Day. How about that? The more they can clean. So it's completely circular, right? And we actually have sold already enough of these glasses to clean half of the Pacific garbage patch, because a single pair of these, the funds that are collected here, a single pair of these actually cleans up 24 football fields of that area. So we've already done about half. I mean, actually, we've reached half in selling these. They're $200 a pair, not cheap, but they're durable and they serve a good cause. So,
so to follow up on that, we had a question from Matthias, which I will generalize slightly. He was asking about the financial infrastructure that has to be in place for the digitally fabricated houses in Tabasco. That's sort of a more general question. I mean, there's a lot of financial infrastructure that needs to be in place, especially for the projects that are meant to help people who do not have the kind of financial means to afford $200 sunglasses. How does Fuse Project work? I assume that you don't have financial experts on staff, but how do you work on them? How do you develop, or do your partners develop those kind of financial structures?
So it's been interesting over the years. I mean, initially the first 10, 15 years of Fuse Project, the sales model and the financial structure was, more traditional. You make a product, you put it in a store, somebody buys it. That's the typical approach. But in the last few years, we've actually been able to modify some of our designs or consider different models based on the products that we design. So, for example, subscription has become a business model for a lot of new companies. And subscription does two things, which I think are positive. One, it keeps a relationship with the company, and the company has an incentive to keep the product working, to keep the product delivering the service, or even making the service better and better and better over time. And the other is that they take full responsibility. If the product breaks, then they take it back and fix it, and give you a new one, fix it, and sell the other one. The other thing that we have seen and have encouraged, we have a few projects that are subscription type projects, and then another one that's been quite interesting is the SNU, which is it's not a cheap product. It's actually quite expensive. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than having a nanny full time at night, or a night nurse, as they're sometimes called. But we have been able to design the product so it's easily dismantled, cleaned, and can be put back into the world, because rentals were from the start a sort of a next stage of the company. So the company started with sales, direct sales, and then is now offering for, I think, $3.50 or $4 a night, a rental option. That's the price of a mid-priced cup of coffee. But those extra hour or 2 hours of sleep I think are well worth it. Uh, so I think the financial structure and business model around the companies we work with, especially the startups that are trying to reinvent, and these categories, I think are very enabling of new concepts, new approaches, new materials, and I think sometimes more responsibility, because if you have a subscription, if somebody is your customer for a long time, I think your attitude towards the quality, towards the service that you deliver changes quite a bit compared to being done at the sale.
Sí que tiene como una suscripción al estudio para ir retocando cosas y demás.
I'm not sure what.
I don't know if that was for me or somebody forgot to mute.
This could go on for a while, but I think we should give you one last question and then let you go on. You've been most generous with your time, and that question is from Reed Holbert, and he says there's a phrase, quote, most advanced yet acceptable, unquote. Most fuse projects work errs on the side of pushing boundaries. How do you balance pushing new concept or ideas with launching successful projects? And for me, that is also a particular interest on the one hand in terms of the reality of financing, but also you've worked in this very entrepreneurial way that is now also expanding beyond the world of industrial design. Does that change when you start doing housing and whether it's the LAUD projects or in Mexico, does that change when you start doing these kind of larger scales projects?
Well, I think this is this phrase, most advanced yet acceptable. I just forget. I'm blanking out who said it, but I think Raymond Loewy.
It was Raymond Loewy, yeah.
Yeah, Raymond Loewy. Actually, I have a really cool sketch from Raymond Loewy on my wall here. So I think it's change and what's new is always going to be always going to be hard to accept. And I think in our process, I'm less focused on initially on the design or the look and feel of something, and I'm more focused on the idea. Meaning, I want our clients, our partners, and eventually the public to fall in love with the idea, and then it becomes, and once we feel like we have the right idea, then we design a solution, and the solution can be a little more pushy, a little less pushy, can be more provocative, more advanced, less advanced. That's not so important. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what's important is this new idea gets adopted. But it's a lot easier to sell people something more advanced or a little bit more advanced than you would have been able to do if they love the idea, rather than selling a design or a signature or a visual. And so I really try to practice that, and not, of course there, as designers, sometimes we want things to go a little further, but I'm not, I think if people love the idea, they'll go a few steps further with you, if you deliver against that. And I think there was a second part, Aaron, to your question, which is about how you finance.
And how it changes when you move into the more the urban scale buildings.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think I haven't. I mean, On the ADUs, we have a bit of a partnership. So on the prefab buildings, so we've been able to apply a similar model as we have in other projects. And for some of the other projects, you know, the 3D printed buildings, you know, that was mostly a pro bono project. So you know, it you know, I don't think it has a big financial sort of return, but to think about, for example, in the case of the 3D printed buildings, what's really important isn't just that the people receive a building for free and move in, but that they really take pride in that community and perpetuate the values and of that community. And so people pay a very small, it's a very interesting concept. The buildings are paid for by donors, because it's a nonprofit, but they pay a very small loan, you know, $10, $20 a month. That doesn't go towards paying for the buildings, but that goes towards maintaining the community, a community center, or the streets and plantings and trees, or some services, social services and others, or the annual, you know, sort of party, you know, New Year's and whatnot. But so, you know, I do think that you can, your designs sort of contribute in completely new ways to areas that sometimes don't have a new business model, don't have a new reward system. I'll use one more example, which is the frame TV. You know, TVs, first of all, never had sensors. So we put a sensor in the TV, I know very much for the first time, a light sensor that adjusts the light temperature and brightness. But then the other thing that was unique is people started to pay for the art that's on the screen, you know, for a collection. So they'll go to the Tate Museum or to the V&A Museum, and they'll say, yeah, I mean, I want access to these works, and so they'll pay $5 or $10 a month as a way to have this unique art they can pick and put up there, and it's actually very successful. It's like it's a shared revenue. You know, TVs used to be this thing you put up, and then when you're done, you know, it's like on the sidewalk, but part of the idea of having art on that was also came about as a new form of revenue that just benefits the artist, a gallery, or the museum at times. And so, you know, I like to think about all these facets of a project holistically. Of course, I love thinking about the material and the finish and the detail on a project, but, you know, I think as designers, the biggest question we can ask ourselves always is, what is our intent? What is the intent for this company, for this experience? And how long can it be perpetuated and sustainable? You know, we do our best in getting to some new approaches there.
Well, thank you, Yves. That was absolutely terrific. We're so grateful that you took the time to show your work and to explain how you get there and how you'll get even further. It was absolutely fantastic and of great use to everyone here. So we're very, very grateful. We do hope that we can get you here to Blacksburg in person someday. It's beautiful here, and we think you'll enjoy meeting some of the folks here. So we'll keep that invitation open and bring you here. And then maybe next time we can also hear, I know from one of your clients that you're working, in fact, on a very fascinating project, Beyond Objects, for a large non-object oriented art collection. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about that in the future. Yes,
that's very exciting too. Very exciting.
So thank you again, and thank everyone else for attending. And reminder again, next week, Thursday at noon with Jan Jongert of Super U Studios, and hope you will join us for that as well. Again, Yves, great.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to you, Aaron, and the students, and Kevin and Bill. And it's wonderful to see everybody. And yes, in person, hopefully soon.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd love to see you live. Thank
All
you very
right.
much.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
You too.
Thank you.